OK.
Merci, Monsieur Hurtubise. Bienvenue tout le monde. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the City Council of May 4th, 2020, the first time that we are doing it in this format. We have held council meetings throughout this pandemic as teleconferences, and now we are doing it live, hopefully it's live on YouTube. So the format will be similar to what we have, what you would have seen in the regular council chamber. We have had questions that have been submitted to us throughout the day that we will answer in our first question period. And then if there are questions throughout the night submitted via YouTube, we will do our very best to answer them and in the time permitting in the second question period. So as we head into our 8th week, we are, as of this Thursday, we would begin our 8th week of social isolation. I know that this is a challenging time for many in our community, for seniors, for young children, for everyone. And there's a lot of questions that can't be answered at this time. But we will do our very best to keep you informed on a daily and weekly basis to the best of our ability with any news and any changes. So with that, I would just say, I know that in the community, the discussion of reopening schools and the deconfinement has caused a lot of stress and anxiety for some, is a very welcome measure for others. And we saw today that date of May 11th of opening stores in Westmount that do have a door that opens onto the street has been moved to May 18th, and they will continue to analyze on the school front. But so we will continue to do our best to inform you, and we have lots of updates throughout. We've had lots of updates throughout the past couple of weeks of additional roads that we've added as walking paths and pedestrian walkways, and we will continue to do more. So I would, in that light, I would hand it over to, and as the voting you'll see tonight, if you listen to any of the teleconferences, we had to go through and name each councillor. We won't do that. It'll be, the voting will take place by a show of hands. And with us on this teleconference, we have notre directeur général, Benoît Hurtubise, puis aussi le greffier, Andrew Brownstein, puis donc, on va commencer avec les rapports des autres conseillers, dont sur mon écran, je vais y aller par mon écran, parce qu'à côté de moi, sur mon écran, c'est Marina Brushke. Donc, je pense qu'elle va commencer avec un rapport. Over to you, Marina, Councillor Brushke. You're on mute.
Yes, hi, good evening, everyone. My comments this evening are very brief. I just want to raise a few items that are going to be discussed and motions that will be passed at today's council. As Commissioner for Sustainability and Accessibility, I'm very happy that minimizing environmental impacts is recognized as one of the city's guiding principles in the draft Contract Management Bylaw 1556 that Councillor Kaz will be moving to adopt later this evening. And this reflects Council's consistent practice of viewing options and decisions through the lens of sustainability. So we're one of the very few municipalities in Quebec to have such a guideline included, and principles of good management of public funds and a priori economic considerations prevail, of course. The addition of environmental sustainability principle is an important complement. So it's a first for the City of Westmount's contract management regulations and policies. So I'm very happy to highlight this. And secondly, residents will be pleased to learn that we're looking into public bins with recycling and composting compartments. So this evening, Councillor Cutler will be passing a motion to approve a system of bid waiting and evaluating for the call of tenders relating to the purchase of these public bins. And this will certainly help improve our city's achievements of those zero waste objectives and vision of the agglomeration of Montreal. So it's a big plus in that direction. And so these are the two highlights that I wanted to mention for this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Councillor Gallery.
Good evening, everyone. Bonsoir. Welcome to our Zoom meeting. I have a few short announcements as well. I'd first like to inform you that for those youth and seniors registered for Westmount programming for the springtime, we unfortunately had to cancel all our programming. So we made an announcement last Wednesday, and all registered participants will be eligible for a credit or a refund. If you choose a refund, the deadline is this Friday, May 7th. Additionally, all our summer events from community events have been postponed. However, we are working on an online live summer concert series. So please stay tuned for that as more information becomes available. So again, our library is working hard behind the scenes. There's lots going on that website. Please keep checking it out. It's evolving, and there's lots there to access. So thank you so much. Merci.
Thank you. And I guess, yeah, the online, we've been using the online library, which is great. And I just, to spread the word, if you are a student who goes to school in Westmount, you also have access to the Westmount Library, which has a great online section. So that is good news as well. And I know that many are anxious to hear about the day camp program, and of which we don't have any firm details on that. So that will be, I guess, in the coming weeks, we should be able to confirm day camps and tennis courts. Over to Councillor Lulham.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Some good news, we will be opening our community gardens on May 18th. In order to maintain safe distancing and the like, we have to put in some rules and allot designated times for users. So the Recreation Department will be contacting all of our member users in the coming days and giving them all the information on that. But for those who have been contacting me, the gardens will be opening on the 18th of May. Our retail stores will also be opening on May 18th as it stands right now. They were supposed to open next Monday, but it'll be the week after. The city's working with both merchant associations. We're looking at markets, at establishing something new, a market in each area once a week. We're looking at hiring an expert to help the merchants and the building owners with all the various funding that's available and how to access that. We have no date yet for the start of restaurants, but we are looking at what we can do with regards to terraces and that, as when they open, they will of course also have limited numbers and will need to have more space. So we're looking into that, and that's my report.
Thank you very much. Councillor Cutler, next.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So typically at this time, I'll be updating you on a bunch of contracts we'd be looking to pass and spending all sorts of money. Today, I won't be doing that to the same extent. However, I will be updating on the money that's been spent on a number of our projects. So as everyone's aware, construction's been on hold for the last several weeks, and our road work, sewer work, sidewalks, everything that we had planned, water work has been on hold as well. Fortunately for us, our engineering team has put together a number of contingency plans for when we would be reopening and what that would look like. And so it does look like we're going to have the ability to get a lot of the work done that we had originally planned, which is fantastic. Our team at engineering worked unbelievably hard over the last year and a half, really, to prepare for this year, for all the work that we had to get done. Some of this work, it really is important that it be done this year. So we're pushing as much as possible to get those streets done. And they fit into much larger ecosystem problems. We look at the work being done in Montreal with some of the water, that the timing of these projects is dependent on a number of things. So delaying them would be a pretty big inconvenience. And we definitely acknowledge the fact that doing a lot of this work on our residential streets during a period of time where people are going to be at home, when they're going to be in a situation where, you know, they may be disrupted more than usual by this work is going to be an ask of our residents. And we're mindful of that. Having recently, about 3 years ago, I guess, lived through a full road reconstruction in front of my home, I can tell you that the city does absolute fantastic job of communicating with residents. So they anticipate that this year as well. If your street is slated to be one of the ones that faces reconstruction or any road work, we're putting together lists so we can email communications to try and reduce as much as possible the distribution of paper copies, and try to limit the interaction that we have. But all that to say, we're incredibly mindful of the commitment that every resident will have to make during this time, but we do need to get this work done. And so we look forward to getting it done and hopefully, you know, without any other hiccups. We're definitely mindful of the fact as well that, you know, the construction may open up and, you know, 3 months from now, things may change. But for now, we're going to proceed. And so we'll continue to communicate that. But that's all I really want to say, that we're really aware of the situation and thank everybody for their convenience. For inconvenience. I believe we may have lost the mayor. So
I think she left me with an instruction to take over.
Yeah. So as the acting pro mayor, I'll hand it off now to Councillor Bostock for a report.
Good evening, everybody. Some updates in terms of public security. To let you know that we did an additional 400 calls compared to our 600 the last time to our residents who are 70 and over, just to check in on them and make sure that they're doing okay. And officers have been enforcing parking with the widened sidewalk areas on various streets. Our patrols have been increased in the Summit Woods area, and we're reminding residents that dogs are to be kept on leash at all times, especially now because it is the bird migration period. We're monitoring contractor activities to ensure that bylaws are being respected as they have returned to work since mid-April. We are also going to have our Westmount Park cadets who will be patrolling our parks in the weeks to come. We have a couple of returning students from last year who will be there, so they're familiar with the parks, and they'll be patrolling with very little training required, which is great. In terms of our grocery deliveries that we continue to do for seniors and residents with medical ailments, and residents, interestingly enough, have actually donated bags of groceries to public security, and they were able to give that food out to people who were in need based on advice from the CLSC Metro. Just a little heads up that if your parking permit is about to expire, you don't have to stress out. There's going to be a grace period for about a month to get your renewal done. And if you are applying for a new parking permit, you would just need to get in touch with the parking permit department, and we will schedule an appointment there for you. And just a reminder that our parking restrictions and enforcement is going to be starting on May 18th. Otherwise, that's it. I hope you're enjoying all of our walking corridors. We've got 27% of our streets covered, so it's good.
Thank you. Councillor Pierce, do you have an update, or has yours been done?
Nope. Thank you,
Sorry,
Madam Mayor.
I had some technical issues, so I didn't know if I had.
Welcome back. Just a couple of updates on the Urban Planning Department. First of all, just to let you know that the Urban Planning Department has resumed some of their permit processing operations, and so they're able now to, if you go to our website, they're able to process some permit applications online. This is a first for us, and it's a bit of a pilot project, a trial project, and we'll see how it goes for us. But so far, it's working pretty well. Next up, PAC. We've had 2 weeks ago, we had our very first online PAC session by Zoom, and later today we will be approving some permits that are the direct result of that online PAC session. So that's a great plus for us. So we're trying, even though we're not able to meet in person, we're using our technology to the benefits so that we can actually get some things done, and so that everything is not at a standstill. The last update, and there'll be a more detailed update, I think, published in this week's Independent, but that concerns the Scopy application that's underway for the St. Mail School at 360 Clark. Now, for those who may not already be aware, there's a school expansion that's being proposed on the Kitchener side of the building, and it's a 3-story addition. We'll have a gym, a few new classrooms, and some auxiliary areas. But there was some concern by the neighbors, particularly on Clark Street, about the impact of that construction, the impact to traffic, and so they had opened up. They had made an application for a registry, which is the first step along the way towards a referendum, if it ever came to that. So this process was underway, but then we were all faced with the COVID pandemic. And with that, all referendums and registries that were underway were then automatically suspended, or there was an allowance in the provincial order that the council, if they deemed a project to be a priority, they could designate that as a priority, and they could replace referendum procedure with a written consultation. And so at the beginning of April, council opted to go that route because we identified this project as being a priority project, something that was important to the neighborhood, and had a wide level of support. So that written consultation, it had a deadline of April 29th. Council and the city made the extra step of making sure that we, instead of just relying on social media or regular postings in the Independent or a posting on our website, we wanted to make sure that everybody in the community was at least aware of this process. So we went out and did a physical mailing of this public notice to every single household in the two districts. And out of the 248 households that we mailed this information to, we had 8 comments that were mailed to us. Mailed to us electronically, and in large, these comments were limited to 4 groups. They're mostly concerned with either traffic, the impact of traffic during construction, the impact of traffic after construction, the impact of the construction itself. Some people were even questioning the need for the expansion of the school, and others were questioning the democratic process. Some people not suspected, but they were a little wary that we were subverting the democratic process. But I think on balance, we've by evidence of the very limited number of written comments that we received from the general public, the 8 out of the 248 households, we think that on balance, this was a good decision. It was a decision that was made a month ago in a time of uncertainty, and it's a decision that council unanimously agreed upon, and because we think that it provides a net benefit to the community, a net benefit to the kids, and also importantly, there's this registry is only available to the people who either live in the zone or directly adjacent to the zone, and it doesn't allow people from the wider area of Westmount, all the parents of the children who are in the catchment area, to really have a voice in this process. And so we, like I said, council believes that it's a net benefit to the community, and we hope that you'll see it the same way. So you'll see more about this in tomorrow's Independent, and we look forward to hearing your comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Peart. And for those who did take the time the public will see your statement on this tomorrow, which answers many of the questions that were in the commentary from residents, and that we will then communicate back with them as well. So thank you for your update on that. Councillor Kez, over to you.
Good evening, everyone. The finance department has been very busy. In addition to having our annual external audit taking place, which is going well, but it's slowing down somewhat due to the pandemic. The department is continually looking at various financial scenarios resulting from the pandemic. As of April 15th, a shortfall of revenues is anticipated of roughly 3.2 million. And this is a result of a decrease in our duties on transfer, a suspension of our parking, which has been suspended already from the month of March and April going into May, a suspension of ticketing, again, March and April, a loss of interest revenues, a loss due to the canceled sports and recreation activities of the spring session. So in order to balance out the books and without incurring a deficit, some capital projects which are less urgent have been delayed and postponed. So that's what's going on in the finance department. But with regard to District 8, there's 2 infrastructure projects that are going to be taking place quite shortly. One being the replacement of the water main and reconstruction of Stainer, which is scheduled to start, I believe, May 19th. And I know many residents are very unhappy, and I've been trying to explain how this project is very important, and we will do our best to make sure that communication is smooth and that it goes smoothly. And on top of that, I'm encouraging residents to take advantage of the water main work to replace the lead water service entries on their own properties. Also, another project taking place is the asphalt going to be on Dorchester, westbound between Atwater and Green Avenue. So that is supposed to start, I believe, June 1st. So a lot of activity in District 8.
Thank you very much for the update on that, Councillor Kez, and Councillor Shammy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to be very quick. Just wanted to do a shout out to all the residents to remind everybody about all the guidelines that Santé Publique has put out. Remember, social distancing, 2 meters apart, wash your hands. And now they're telling us, of course, everybody wear a mask in public. So I think it's important. We must all follow the guidelines. And ladies and gentlemen, the last thing I want to throw out to reach out to everybody is do an act of kindness. Call a senior, call a loved one, call someone who's isolated, give them some support. And an act of kindness, it goes so far. And Madam Mayor, I just wanted to do that little shout out. That's my report.
Thank you, and a very nice way to end the councillors' reports. And again, I think we've seen many acts of kindness of people helping out their neighbors, whether it be with groceries or errands. And again, a reiteration of the 2 meter social distancing that is still very much, still very much in force. So now we move to the first question period. At which point the city clerk will read to me the questions that have been submitted online today, and hoping that we have no technical difficulties while this happens.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. So we will jump right into it with our first question here from Mr. Ken London of 445 Prince Albert with the following question. One question, 2 parts, and then there's a second question, as is allowed. So, firstly, why is there a reference to environmental concerns with no reference to a specific standard, which renders the entire bylaw? This is sounds to be in relation to bylaw 1556, which renders the entire bylaw, or at least this clause, without merit nor guidance. The lead standard for demolition and disposal of materials would be a good place to start. It looks like a last-minute add-on by Westmount as required by the Cities and Towns Act. During the probable addendum period, will there be time for more questions with some time for discussion and input from residents?
Thank you for the question. I too am assuming that he's referring to bylaw 1556. And I'm not, I think, as he's probably seen, he's a regular attendee at council meetings, and I think he follows these agendas fairly closely. I don't think he would be shocked to see this type wording in this council's bylaw and turning, and that we do look at things through the eyes of sustainability and environmental standards. And yes, if there are, if we need to amend the bylaw going forward, we can certainly do that. Councillor Breshke, did you have anything you wanted to add to this? Or Councillor Kez, I know you're moving the motion.
Yes, I can say it's a great addition to have this guideline mentioned. It is a guideline and it's not defined in the bylaw per se. It's taken to be defined in a very broad way, which is to the benefit actually of the perspective of sustainability throughout all of our contract management. So it is a guiding principle. And of course, we are, as councillors, and as administration, have a due diligence to look at all the contracts in a financial viewpoint. But what this says is that we must ask those questions about the environmental sustainability part. And those are the questions we must have answered and evaluate with the big picture of these contracts. So it's just a guiding principle, but it has weight. It's an excellent addition, and not all municipalities have this. So it wasn't an afterthought whatsoever. It was quite planned to have that in our contract, this proposed contract bylaw.
Thank you. And is there a second part to this question, Maitre Brownstein?
Well, there is, in fact, a second question, as our procedure allows for. So I'll jump right into that. And this is with regards to agenda. This is again from Mr. London. This is with regards to agenda item number 10. And just for those listening, that is the approval of a system of bid weighting and evaluating call for tenders purchase of street furniture. Just for context for those in the audience. Now, can council please explain what in fact is being tendered on under street furniture, and will residents have a chance to comment on the proposal or document before actual tender, i.e. will the street benches match the existing ones, or is a new design and standard being proposed?
The Director General may want to add some more details on the street furniture that's being proposed, and Councillor Lulham, I think, has some details on this. Do you want to address this?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a bid. This is actually an evaluation grid for a bid. It's actually for garbages and
The recycling bin.
and recycling bins that are public that we're going to be installing throughout the city. So there's a there's a new evaluation grid because we want to make sure that we have the right model that fits in some very specific criteria, and that's the reason why we put in that evaluation bid. So it's not benches, it's actually garbages, because some of these garbages have been in there for, I would say, over 20 years, some of them. So we're in dire, and at the same time, we want to introduce recycling and composting.
Yeah, and this is what Councillor Breshke was referring to in her opening comments tonight. But you will see.
For the garbage, it's for the parks also. You know, the people complain about the garbage cans. It's for throughout the city.
Okay, thank you. Following question, Maitre Brownstein.
Next question is from Roger Josham of 122 Lewis. And the question is the following: as Westmount has declared a climate emergency, and as artificial turf playing fields take away all the beneficial effects of evaporative cooling, stormwater storage, provision of oxygen, and as a feeding service for bird life to adjoining neighbors of the WAG, and as most disastrously, all artificial turf playing fields are heat sinks, which cause increased heat load during summer months. As Labospor was financially engaged by council to do a report for the WAG playing fields at the beginning of the COVID-19 crisis, as Labospor exists only because of the artificial turf industry, will council assume its responsibility to the declaration on a climate emergency and disavow its financial engagements to Labospor whose report could only be seen as greenwashing of a heat sink at the WAG, and undertake to repay Westmount for the tax dollars improperly allocated by dividing the cost of the Labascore report among all members of Westmount City Council.
Mr. Yoakum has asked this question of me in the past, as well as the Director General. And what we have made very clear is that we want the most updated data on what is out there and what is the environmental footprint of the varying different playing surfaces, but also to track what the environmental footprint of our own current grass surfaces, how much water are we using and things like that. He shared with me some data which he had felt was it was useful and pertinent to the situation this day. And I had reiterated to him, we want the most up to date. And the technology has changed. So what they had shared with me, or he had shared with me, was from 2005. And so we are looking, as we've stated before, we are looking at what the different options are out there and what the environmental impact of them is. Is anyone else care to comment on this? And we will await the report, and then we will take it from there. Councillor Gallery, had you motioned that you wanted to make a comment on this?
I'd just like to add that we also have a responsibility to look at these options just to see if and how we could benefit our sports and rec offering to residents who are looking for more. So it's still at an information gathering phase and an important one.
Okay, thank you. Maitre Brownstein, your next question.
Yes, thank you. So the next question is from Patricia Dumay of 1106 Green. The preamble of the question is the following. In general, residents visiting our city parks have been following social distancing guidelines, but on several occasions, I've noticed groups of 10 to 15 persons congregating, usually to play sports in Westmount parks. They were not practicing any means of social distancing. What further measures, and here's the question, what further measures will the city take to prevent large gatherings of people in our parks?
Thank you for your question, Ms. Dumay. We have set out from the very beginning that we've been very clear that our goal is that our parks remain open. They are critical in this time to our citizens. And we've put in several measures to ensure that social distancing is adhered to. So we've, taped up our soccer posts, we've taped up our playgrounds, the tennis courts are not open. And occasionally you will see instances where we've put up snow fencing on the big soccer field. And so we put in many measures to make sure, or to do what we can. And we're asking the community to also do what they can, and citizens to really adhere to this, and that our parks stay open. And so if you do see something that is worrisome to you, of a large group gathering or something like that, the most effective way to deal with that is to fill in the form on the SPVM. The link is right there on the front page of our website. It's on their website as well. And that is the most efficient way. You'll also see increased foot patrols in our parks, in all the parks throughout the city. So it's not just Westmount Park, but several of the parks. And we put in measures around Summit Woods, where we were seeing lots of gathering, where we've limited the parking up there and limited the on-street parking as well. So if you want to go, that's fine, as long as you socially distance, and you may have to walk a little further to get there. So we are always looking at how it evolves. We have daily calls with the public security team and the administration. And if there are more changes that need to be done, they will be taken quickly. Does anyone else have anything they want to add to that? No? Okay, next question, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The next question is from Mr. Dennis Bureau of 36 Burton. And you'll just have to bear with me with my own here we are. The question is the following. Although the Imagine Westmount consultation process has been temporarily paused, Councillor Lellem stated last month that the Urban Planning Department is continuing its work on new planning bylaws for our city. What specific areas of Westmount's urban plan are currently not working? Why not? And how will the proposed bylaws fix these problems?
That's a very, very broad question, but it seems as though it's addressed specifically to Councillor Lellem. So I will hand it over to her. And if there's anything else, I will answer afterwards.
Thank you, Mayor Smith. So it is a very broad question. One of the things about zoning bylaws is we don't tend to talk about them a lot until we read them, and then we have consultation sessions. But in a broad base, I would say that one of the areas definitely of concern and that we were working on before the pandemic is our commercial zoning in the 2 commercial areas of Westmount. And so that is an area that we are looking at. What can we do to facilitate and help our local businesses and merchants? With regard to the program for the Imagine Westmount 2040, we will shortly be continuing by having education programs and materials posted on our site. And we are currently, of course, reviewing and revising the schedule as we go along, not knowing quite at this part when we can resume.
Thank you. And thank you for the question, Mr. Bureau. And it is, I think it's been a period of reflection for a lot of people of how they see their city and how they see public space allotted throughout the city for car traffic and parking and things like that. And as people spend more time as pedestrians, perhaps they're viewing these things in a different light. So next question.
Okay, the next question is from Dan Lambert of the Association of Pedestrians and Cyclists of Westmount. And the question is titled Post-Confinement Social Distancing Corridors. And this is the introduction. Best wishes to council. It is a pleasure to see so many pedestrians and cyclists feeling safe on the streets of Westmount with so few drivers. Westmount's numerous social distancing corridors have been greatly appreciated by residents during the confinement period. Thank you. During the upcoming resumption of economic and social activities, many residents, especially seniors, will want to maintain social distancing. To allow that to happen, we suggest that Westmount establish new post-confinement social distance corridors along Westmount's popular east-west streets, de Maisonneuve, Sherbrooke Street, and St. Catherine Street. De Maisonneuve, convert parking lane to social distance corridor. Currently, de Maisonneuve is particularly busy with pedestrians and cyclists sharing the bike path and driving lane. When people return to work and school, the number of cyclists will increase significantly. Including new cyclists who previously used public transportation. That will make the bike path less safe for pedestrians. A gradual return of drivers will also make the driving lane less safe for pedestrians. Since the de Maisonneuve sidewalks are too narrow for social distancing, we suggest that the city converts the north parking lane to a social distancing corridor. Recent surveys indicate that only 20 to 25 cars are parked along de Maisonneuve. Most de Maisonneuve homes have parking aprons / strips which are significantly underused. Residents with 2 cars may prefer to park 1 car on the street to avoid shuffling. Melville to Metcalfe residents have parking off their back lane. About 70 parking spots are available within half a block of de Maisonneuve on adjacent north-south streets. During this pandemic, it seems inappropriate for parked cars to prevent social distancing when alternative parking space is available. Now, Sherbrooke Street, establish social distance corridors along both sides of the street. Through Victoria Village, the sidewalks are wider, but in many places social distancing is difficult. Along the rest of Sherbrooke Street, the sidewalks are too narrow for social distancing. We suggest the city reduce the number of driving lanes from 4 to 2 and move parking away from the curb to create social distance corridors along the sidewalks. St. Catherine Street, establish social distancing corridors along both sides of the street. Along much of St. Catherine Street, there are 1.5 driving lanes in each direction. We suggest the city eliminate the extra half driving lane and move parking away from the curb to create a social distance corridor along the sidewalk. Thank you. And a PS, we have just learned that Côte-des-Neiges NDG is in the process of installing bollards for social distance zones on Sherbrooke Street from Marlow to Claremont. And this would appear to be a request for council's opinion on this proposal. That would be the question. I will.
Thank you very much for the question. Thank you, Mr. Lambert, for the question. And so the city right now has close to 30% of our streets we've added some form of pedestrian walkway. And it comes in different ways. I mean, we've seen what's on de Maisonneuve, where it's more of a shared street, on other streets where we've extended the sidewalks with cones and with bollards and signage and asking people and taking away some parking lanes, things like that. But there's more to come and there's more to do, and those are great ideas. And I'd like to thank Dan and Mr. Lambert and the group at the Pedestrian Association that always come with very concrete plans and action plans and ideas for how we can make walking safer. And we've worked together over the years to try and to really put an emphasis on that in the past couple of years. And there is more to come. And Sherbrooke Street is definitely a place as stores open and we see more people in the Victoria Village. I think collectively, this council is very much in favor of handing over the public space to the people who are on it, to the pedestrians, to the cyclists, and where it makes sense. And so north-south, we need north-south connections, we need east-west. And it just takes a day like Saturday and Sunday for part of the day, but Saturday where it was sunny all day long and 20 degrees, and we see the streets are packed, and that's a great thing, but it means we need to give them enough space to walk safely. So thank you for your suggestions. They're very timely. We have a TAC meeting tomorrow morning, I think at 9:00. Of which many of these issues will be discussed. So you'll see more news on pedestrian walkways, and you're seeing many of the other boroughs that are following as well throughout the island of Montreal. So I think they're great initiatives, and I did see the signage up on Sherbrooke Street and NDG. So more to come on that. I don't know if anyone else wants to say anything or has any further comments on that. Seeing no hands waving at me, we will go to, if there is another question, the next question.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. We have one more question for this first question period. And this is from James Gleason of 77 Stainer. Hello, I apologize for the question coming in late. It came just at the end of the day. I asked that the council meeting a month ago whether the water main reconstruction work on Stainer could be delayed. Many of us living on the street are concerned with the level of noise we will have to deal with for an entire summer while still being largely confined to our homes due to COVID. The response a month ago was a wait and see, but now the work appears to be going ahead. I and some of my neighbors would like the council to reconsider the work schedule. We are not against it being done, but would like it delayed to the fall or next year so that we do not have to face the work while COVID restrictions are still in place. There is never a good time to do any major project like this, but this summer is the worst possible timing. Thank you, Jim Gleason.
Jim Gleason
there was an added comment that I'll just add here. P.S. I should point out that although I am writing this alone, I know of at least 4 to 5 other people on the street who feel the same way from a social media group and from asking one neighbor. And I think if I asked more people on the street, the response would be the same. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your feedback, Mr. Gleason. And I know that you had asked this question, and I know you've been in touch with your local city councillor, Councillor Kez, as have several of the residents on that street, and she has relayed that information. I know firsthand what it's like to live on a street that's being reconstructed, and it is a major imposition, and I even more so during this time. But it is not always obvious, but all our work is driven by the water network that is under the street. This particular water network dates from 1894. So it is very, very important that the work gets done. we will do the city will do everything within its power to mitigate the imposition, but it is very important that we do not lose a year for the work that needs to be done on the water networks in Westmount and on the roads. So I know Councillor Cutler had addressed this before, and I really do empathize with you, but we will do our very best. You will see the team will be on site constantly. There will be someone from the engineering department that is there and taking care of any questions and concerns. And they are fully aware of the inconvenience that it will do. So they will do everything in their power to minimize that. But Councillor Cutler, do you have any further comments on this, or Councillor Kez, do you want to?
I do. Certainly understand as well the comment to delay. The big concern with water network maintenance, and in this case, we're going to be requiring a secondary line, and so if there were to be a delay, we started in the fall, and then that was delayed further, it would result in the temporary network being there in the winter, which is not possible because it would freeze. So this is something that we discussed with engineering, and that's why we're trying to move forward with the water network projects earlier, because those are ones that really can't go into the winter. And so we're definitely mindful of the impact that this project will have on all the residents. And it's going to be a difficult time for everybody, but making it harder with a project like this is not ideal, but it does have to get done. So certainly empathize as well, and we'll do our best to communicate and try to reduce the noise and the impact that it's going to have on the residents if they are at home during this.
Thank you. Councillor Kez, did you have anything to add on that, or has it all been covered?
Not really. I mean, everything's been said, but really I'll be there to help relay, communicate, make it as smooth as possible. We're all there to make sure this goes well, and hopefully it will go smoothly without any problems, and we're in this together. That's it.
Okay, thank you for that. Maitre Brownstein, are there any more questions? I think there's one more, right?
Yes, exactly. Thank you. There is, in fact, one more question, and this is from Judy Marty. The question is, would Westmount consider doing a citywide pot banging / bell ringing tribute to our essential workers like New York and others are doing?
Thank you. And this comes from Judy Martin, who's
yes, sorry, there must have been a typo in what she had written there. Yeah, I guess Martin. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And Judy Martin is one of our, a very active member of our community, who is a great volunteer with the Montreal hospitals and particularly Cedars. I think it's a great idea. I think it's happening in pockets here and there, but if we could certainly get the word out to have a much, a broader pot banging, then we can look at how we get that communication out. But I think it's a great tribute to all the healthcare workers, and there are many who live in our community. And so, yeah, I think it would be good. I had on that note, I was speaking to an ER doctor who lives on our street the other day, and he said one of the greatest things in this is that people are truly understanding and appreciating the role of nurses in our healthcare system. So I thought that was a lovely tribute to the nurses. So we will get in touch with you, Judy, and we will look at how we can get this going. It's pretty easy. Everybody's got a pot and a wooden spoon. So we will get that going. So anyone else want to comment on that? No? Okay. So is that it?
Sorry, there'll be just one final last question here from Andrew Grove of 617 Belmont. Last month, I asked Council if the 2020 budget and its plan to use a substantial part of the accumulated surplus still had relevance in the face of a revenue drop in parking fees, parking fines, and most likely property transfer duties. The answer given was that the city was in a wait-and-see period as some project may not be able to go ahead from a more logistic point of view than a financial one. 1 month later, is the answer still the same? And has the city taken any steps to manage expenses at this stage, such as labor costs at closed facilities, energy use at closed facilities, etc.?
Yes, thank you for your question, Mr. Groves. I remember it from last month as well. And yes, we have had to make adjustments to the budget. And so both in a staffing perspective and operating, we have done that. But also in terms of projects that we are moving forward with. So we are not going to be able to do all the capital works projects that we had hoped, because we are seeing a loss of revenue, which was alluded to before, in all sorts of things, whether it be parking revenue, which, you know, will come back, but probably not to the same levels, transfers on duties, which is a significant number. And so we are making adjustments on that, and that will come out of, we will not do some of the capital works projects, and we have made adjustments to our operating budget as well. Does Councillor Kez want to add anything else to that?
Yeah, I think the question was also regarding accumulated surplus. So if our capital projects are going where some are being canceled, so the amount of accumulated surplus that was allocated for those particular projects won't be used. So in essence, the accumulated surplus that was originally planned to be used will not all be used. So we'll be ending up with more accumulated surplus than originally planned. And regarding expenses, regarding departmental expenses, there's not much that can be pinched away from there aside from the sports and recreation department. So, but and besides the labor, yes, some auxiliary workers were, unfortunately, we were forced to let some go. So some expenses have been cut, yes. Mayor Smith.
Thank you for that. Mr. Brownstein, are there any further questions?
No further questions.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor Smith, I just want to end just by saying there's going to be a second question period. And for those that are live, using live stream, they can use the chat feature. There's some instructions listed by that were put in there, and you still have to name yourself and so on. And you can use the chat live stream, and we'll take any questions at the second question period at the end. That's it.
All right, thank you. So now I'm going to put myself between two screens here. So we move, we have a new pro mayor this month. It is Councillor Cutler. So we move to the adoption of the agenda, item number 4.
Madam Mayor, thank you. I move that the agenda of the regular council sitting of May 4th, 2020 be adopted.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Gallery, and all in favor, raise your hand. Carried. Confirmation of minutes. Again, Councillor Cutler, item number 5.
Madam Mayor, I move that the minutes of the regular council sitting held on April 20th, 2020 be approved.
Thank you. Again, do I have a seconder? Councillor Bostock, all in favor? Carried. Item number 6, reports to council. There are no reports to be tabled in terms of correspondence. Item 6.2, Councillor Cutler.
Madam Mayor, the minutes of the General Committee meeting of Council held on April 6th, 2020 are tabled and are available on the city's website.
Thank you. A seconder, Councillor, oh, it doesn't need a vote. Item 6.3, the Finance Administration minutes. There are no minutes tabled. 6.4, Councillor Bostock.
I move that the minutes of the Transportation Advisory Committee meeting held on February 18th, 2020 are tabled and available on the city's website.
Merci beaucoup. 6.5, Councillor Chamy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that the manpower report for the month of March 2020 is now tabled.
Merci beaucoup. 6.6, Councillor Kez.
Yeah, the list of payments for the month of March is tabled.
Thank you. 6.7, list of approvals in virtue of bylaw 1507. Councillor Shammy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In accordance with bylaw 1507 on the delegation of powers to certain employees of the city of Westmount, the list of authorization of expenditures for the month of March 2020 is now tabled.
Thank you very much. Item number 7, l'adoption of council's position on the items to be submitted to the Montreal Agglomeration Council. Councillor Cutler.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that the mayor, or in her absence, the acting mayor, being myself, be authorized to make any decisions she deems necessary and in the best interest of the city of Westmount and its residents regarding items on the agenda of the Montreal Agglomeration Council meeting to be held on May 28th, 2020.
Thank you very much. And a seconder is Councillor Gallery. All in favor? Carried. Item number 8, extension of the contract, Superintendent, Roads and Public Works. Councillor Shammy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that the contract of Monsieur Denis René for the position of Superintendent Roads, Grade 8 in the Public Works Department be extended for a maximum period of 8 weeks from May 3rd, 2020 to June 27th, 2020, according to the needs of the department, the whole in accordance with the recommendation of the Director of Human Resources and the terms provided for in the working conditions and the remuneration of management personnel.
Thank you very much. Seconder on that would be Councillor Cutler. Any further comments about this? No. All in favor? Carried. Item numéro 9, l'adoption règlement 1556 sur la gestion contractuelle, le greffier de la ville.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So for this item, I would like to report that all formalities required for dispensing with the reading of this bylaw have been observed, and that copies of the bylaw have been remitted to all members of council and are available for public reference. The object of this bylaw is for the city to fulfill its obligations under section 573.3.1.2 of the Cities and Towns Act, CQLR C19, which provides that every municipality must adopt a bylaw on contract management, providing measures, 1, to promote compliance with any applicable anti-bid rigging legislation, 2, to ensure compliance with the Lobbying Transparency and Ethics Act and the Code of Conduct for Lobbyists, 3, to prevent intimidation, influence peddling, or corruption, 4, measures aimed at preventing conflict of interest situations, 5, to prevent any other situation likely to compromise the impartiality and objectivity of the call for tenders process and the management of the resulting contract, 6, to govern the making of decisions authorizing the modification of a contract, and 7, to ensure a fair rotation of potential contracting parties for contracts involving an expenditure of $25,000 or more, but below the expenditure threshold, obliging a public call for tender, and that may be awarded by mutual agreement.
Thank you. Esther, can I have the declaration by each member of council present that he or she has read the bylaw and that reading is waived thereof?
So declared.
So declared.
Declared.
So declared.
Declared.
Councillor Kez, over to
I
you.
move that bylaw 1556 entitled bylaw concerning contract management be adopted.
Thank you. I declare that bylaw 1556 entitled bylaw.
No, just a seconder. Yeah,
Oh, yes.
seconder.
On that, Councillor Breshke is seconding that. All in favor? I see a show of hands. I declare that bylaw number 1556 entitled bylaw concerning contract management having been duly adopted, it is ordered that notices be given as required by law. Thank you very much for that. Number 10, again, Councillor Cutler, approval of a system of bid waiting and evaluating call for tenders, purchase of street furniture.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that the city adopts the attached system of bid waiting and evaluation for a call for tenders relating to the purchase of street furniture.
Thank you. And a seconder on this, I'm sure, would be Councillor Breschke. We have discussed this a few times tonight, of this being in relation to garbage, recycling, compost cans. Any further comments on this that hadn't already been addressed tonight?
No.
No. All in favor? Carried. And now we move to item number 11, approval of building permits. Le Conseil Peart.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that according to the recommendations made by the Planning Advisory Committee at its meeting held on April 23rd, 2020, the building permit applications appearing on the attached list, reviewed under bylaw 1305 on site planning and architectural integration programs, be approved.
Merci beaucoup. Et l'appuyeur, c'est Madame Lallam, j'imagine. Any further comments on this? A shorter list than is.
As I mentioned earlier, all of these were previously in. All those that are on the list tonight were approved during our online Zoom session a couple of weeks ago. So we're moving ahead.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Carried unanimously. Our last item. Oh no, there is no new business. So I'm not sure if the city clerk has any questions from the online platform.
We're gonna move to YouTube second question period, and I guess now I can invite anyone in our audience to submit a question. Just would like to confirm for that urban planning approval building permits that we had a seconder. Who had second? Perfect. Okay. Thank you. It was a little skipping on my audio hearing it. So seeing no, do we see any further questions? I don't see any on my end.
All right. So we're just looking right now. I don't see any questions at this point. Just give me 30 seconds. I'll refresh my screen just in case. So I don't see any questions at this point, but let me refresh in case sometimes you get little surprises. No, we don't see any questions coming out from the chatting screen.
Okay, so since there are no more questions, we will, I guess this video will now be also uploaded on our website tomorrow, right? Is what I understand. And I've had lots of questions from the public over the past couple of weeks of how we're managing meetings and things like that in this time of COVID. And just so people have a bit of a better understanding how we meet by teleconference several times a week as a council. The senior administration and I meet almost daily, not every day, but almost daily. On a morning call to address any specific issues for the day, or that have, as everyone has seen, this changes sometimes by the hour in terms of how we manage this as a city. So we are in constant contact, and if there are any issues, please reach out to your council member, reach out to me, and we will try and adjust them. And we are, this is also a new way of doing things for a municipality, in that we are trying to implement things like, pedestrian walkways and how we're dealing with parks and things like that in a very quick and efficient manner to really benefit citizens. So on that note, I just continue to stress that we need to continue to adhere to social distancing, and that we will obviously be very mindful of the changes and the deconfinement, I guess, that is happening over the next couple of weeks. So be well and stay safe.
Okay.
And the meeting is adjourned. Okay.